welcome to Risk Roundup. The impact of COVID-19 pandemic is far-reaching for individuals and entities across nations. The resulting complexity has become a new constant in our individual and collective lives. While the blame game is ongoing for the failures, the reality remains that we need to protect ourselves, our businesses, our industries, and nations from what has hit us. As we begin to evaluate, it is not only the individuals that are being impacted. The challenges seem to be getting complex for businesses as well. Seemingly, the growing complexities are mainly due to the interconnectedness and interdependencies of our systems. So as the risk of cascading failures are becoming a reality, to evaluate how businesses are adjusting to the growing complexity, or rather how businesses can adjust to the growing complexity, I'm delighted to welcome Natty Gur to this roundup. Natty is the founder of Galaxies, a management consulting organization based in the United States. Welcome, Natty. We are so very honored to have you on Risk Roundup.
Well, thank you for having me.
Wonderful, Natty. So we see these complex systems all around us. This COVID-19 pandemic is perhaps more complex than the invent of internet or probably the climate crisis that is on everybody's mind. So before we begin a discussion on COVID-19 impact to the businesses, let us begin by discussing how have businesses been adjusting to many such complex systems over the years. What approach helped them most from your assessment?
Okay, so I think it might be better to start with a little bit of definition so we all be on the same page. So we distinguish between complicated and complex. And it's kind of related to COVID. So there are complicated problems, and those are problems that has a lot of elements, but so it takes time to understand what is the problem, how to resolve it. But once you manage to resolve the problem, you are getting very expected results of what you're dealing. You know, an iPhone is a good example. It has tons of elements inside, but once it was produced, you know what to expect out of it. Complex problems that also have a lot of elements, but the main problem is that you can't expect what the system is going to do, while in complicated you can expect. And I think that one of the main obstacles in front of organization is that we all wired to deal more with complicated problems. Engineering that we all like to follow is an excellent solution to deal with complicated issues, but it's kind of falling apart when it needs to deal with complex, because engineering or all the concepts of strategic management are based on the fact that you can predict to some degree what's going to happen, and then you can design something or create a strategy that will help you to move from one direction to another direction. But if the situation is unpredictable, very hard to be predictable, then obviously if you keep on using the tools that they are getting used to use for complicated issues, and you're applying to complex, you have a problem. And what we see is that many organizations simply obliviate to that. So they don't know it. They ignore it. Even before COVID, if you sat in a room and someone mentioned some complex problem, everyone probably would say, oh, this is very hairy, and everyone will nod with their head, and oops, we are moving to the easiest solution that need to be resolved. But the problem is that the complex problems are with us. COVID just emphasized in a very nice way that they're not going anywhere. They are increasing all the time. We can go into the processes that create complexity, but in a nutshell, every organization to survive and thrive and to be able to conduct business or to lead any kind of industry needs to have variety. And the process of creating variety, the resources that needed to maintain variety are creating complexity because you have more elements to manage. Yes. And you have more people that needs to manage it. And when you start to have more and more elements that are autonomous, they can make their own decision, diverse, they can see world or life in different ways, but they're still very interconnected. And then the end result is that although you can, to some degree, know what each one of us is going to do as a whole, as a system, it's unpredictable.
Yes.
And it's a problem because we are right now, or most of organization or leadership or management as it is set up today, doesn't have the right tool to deal with complexity. It might sound too extreme, but it's reality. So if it's kind of, we will ask, so if we ask several, I don't know, several people that expert in physics to resolve problems that got to do with not with the atom itself, but with the interconnectivity within the atoms,
Yes.
the
Yes.
standard model of the atom. And they don't have any clue about quantum. They won't be able to resolve any problem, sorry. They are not going to help you to resolve any problem.
Yes.
But if they will have this knowledge of quantum, they have better tool set and better understanding so they can manage to find issues and resolve them. And I think the same applies to management. There is, there are proven ways in science how to deal with complexity. There are at least two sciences that explain how complexity is created and what are the 14 attributes that help to organizational system to survive and thrive in complexity. But since they're science and since they're abstract and since they are more mathematical in nature and more physics in nature, we don't tend to observe them and use them inside organization, and we are missing one of the major tools that exist for us, to deal with complexity. So I don't know. Sorry that it took some time, but I just want to emphasize. I think it's a very important point that organization needs to be aware of and be more open and susceptible to new ideas and try to see what science done and what other disciplines are doing that better manage complexity.
Yes.
In order to eventually people are working for organizations. So if leaders are not making the right decision, people are impacting all over the world. It's like, it's not a game. You are impacting people's life, and you need to, on top of the business that you have to conduct, there are other people that depends on you. You need to make the right decision to.
Absolutely. I think you gave a great background and, very good understanding about the complexities and difference between complexities and complicated, and gave a good example about the physics, and how to evaluate, at an atomic level, what different variables are there. So if you look at you talked about from the organization perspective, now if we focus on even just the risk perspective, there are independent risk and there are interconnected and interdependent risk. And most of the organizations, they focus on silo independent risk. It's even if they know that there are, interconnected, interdependent risks, many of the times they just decide to, transfer those risks or insure the risk or, simply ignore it. So the risk, that is how, they keep getting bigger and bigger and complex, and, they become difficult to manage. So these, what you explained is fits right there into the, whole dynamics that, what we don't understand, we cannot manage effectively. So if we don't understand the complexities of the systems at the organizational level, at the national level or industry level or national level or global level, if we don't understand the complexities, if we don't understand all the different, parts that make those, systems, then we cannot manage that effectively. So while the COVID-19 pandemic is novel, and it's a new virus, and it brings itself, its own security risk, because we don't understand the virus and how it's impacting the humans, what systems it impacts, or how the human health is impacted by it, and how we can create what kind of preventive or therapeutic drug we can create to manage the health impact. that itself is an enormous challenge. But I mean, keeping that aside, the health impact, uh, there is also enormous impact on businesses, and it is important to understand how businesses are responding to the complexity of this COVID-19 impact on their businesses, their survival, their security, their very survival and security, because most businesses are facing enormous challenges, right now. So, and everything is connected. If businesses don't survive, then the economy gets impacted, national security gets impacted. So how are businesses responding to this enormous complexity of COVID-19 that has impacted them all of a sudden? Nobody was prepared.
True. No one's more prepared. So, I wouldn't say no one, but obviously many weren't prepared.
Yes.
And yeah, and they you can see the outcome of that. So regretfully, I don't think that they are prepared for that, and I don't think that. So the way that the organization trying to do with complexity is two ways. They're trying to simplify it. They're trying to get more control, and those two are awesome if you're dealing with complicated issues, but they are not going to help you with complex. So you are trying to simplify it. In reality, you're creating more complexity because you're actually breaking stuff to lower elements because you're trying to simplify it. Eventually, you're creating more complex. You're trying to control it, it's not going to help you. You can't control a complex system. The unpredictability is inherent in the system. So, we would like to think that we can control everything. I think COVID is a good example that we can't. There's this dam now in Wuhan that is like in China is going to collapse. Like 400 million people, and I think around 16 nuclear facilities are in danger because people, it's like really scary there. Think what happened after Chernobyl, so now 60. But it's kind of a proof that we try to control the flow of the Yangtze River, but eventually nature is too strong. Yeah, you can't control it, and I think that if organization wants to deal with complexity, they need, instead of pushing it out, they need to adjust to it. And this is where the science coming in, because there are, if you take a city, it's a complex environment. Yeah, it's surviving and thriving for thousands of years. It's just growing all the time. Yeah. If you take an organization, I'm doing a dirty trick, but it will prove the point. Okay. If you take an organization, it's in the last 60 years, the lifespan of an organization, the average went from 60 years to 15 years. So the organization going the right direction, the other direction. What's the main difference between those two? One is a pure system that was non-designed. It's evolving, and it knows how to deal with complexity, and it's dealing with complexity each and every day. The other one is more controlled. We are trying to reduce as much as we can the unpredictability, because as human beings, we don't like it. And the end result is that the data prove that it's not growing, it's shrinking. So you can definitely start to see the difference between that. And the interesting thing that you don't need to, it's pretty simple to adjust to complexity. You just need to understand that not everything in life can be controlled. And there are elements that you can adapt. You don't have to adapt everything that exists in the city, but you can definitely adapt certain elements and go and make a progress. And all the agile movement that we see, and the changes in perception of employee as people. So over the last 20 years, there were like significant change that prove that people understand that there is a problem, and are trying to find solutions how this problem can be resolved.
Sure. Now, if I may interrupt,
sure.
You mentioned the point that the lifespan of the organization has shrunk. compared to before. So is the digital age the reason behind that, the digitization, or automation, or the simply the failure, or inability to innovate and to come up with new products and services? Because now the entire ecosystem is so competitive. The competitiveness, the threats are not coming just from within the industry but outside the industry, and not just within your nation but outside the nation. So do you think all these variables played a role in the lifespan of the organization?
So yes, I do think that all of them play a part, but I think all of them are symptoms. Okay, I think that the root cause is a growing gap between. So most of the management systems that we are operating today are based on Frederick Taylor, Weber. Like those are 100 years ideas that still are prominent in the business world. Okay. And those ideas are really awesome when you have to operate production lines, and they did magic in production lines. But more and more companies, like all the stuff that you mentioned, created an environment where you are now getting data and money, not necessarily from production lines. Yeah, you sell virtual stuff, you sell data. You turn people from, or many people from being part of the production line to people that, taking advantage of a group abilities to create something new and sell it. All of those elements just created more and more complex environment because you have now more elements involved and more autonomous part and all interlinked. And globalization now, instead of having a small network in different areas, now everything is connected. So a small change here impacts suddenly the entire world. And simply, in my point of view, what happened is that we didn't refresh or we didn't upgrade management system to deal with the complexity that we see. So everything is like, everything that you mentioned, it's a symptom. But if you want to really, really go and resolve it, you need to open your mind and you need to start to think creatively what you can do or what you, so the data is there. It's not hidden anywhere. It's open a book or open the internet, Google complex adaptive system, read it, and you see what science says about what they find out, what are the attributes that helps organization to be successful. Okay. They are not common in the working place, I can tell you for sure. Now you can't you can't change the world in one day, so you can't flip it. But you can definitely find elements that you feel more comfortable with and start to adapt them. And agility is, by the way, one of the main way to do it. So Scrum is an agile way, is heavily based on complex adaptive system. The founder of Scrum just keep on saying out loud that he took most of the ideas from complex adaptive system.
Sure. So, but yeah. My point, let me interrupt here. Sorry. My point is, before we talk about the systems, I think it's the approach that takes the priority for business individuals or businesses. Because while yes, of course, we have to keep all our systems upgraded, and we have to make sure that our systems are fit to the changing environments, to the rapidly changing environment. And especially if we look at now, when during the COVID-19, most of the states and most businesses were in shutdown, and a lot of them are still in shutdown, or they have gone changed their strategy and they have gone digital. But not everyone is able to go digital. So it is about the business decision makers, what they are prioritizing and how they are approaching the systems, to build the systems that are fit for this, changing times. It comes secondary, but it's the approach. And do you see from your perspective that business decision makers have the right approach, right mindset in how to go through these changing times?
It's a tough question. So let's start with the fact that 86% of them doesn't think that what they're doing or what they have right now is the right solution. So that's like, I think Gartner or Capgemini survey, I think around like 6,000 of executive, 86% says that they don't feel that the current organization structure or the management model that they're following is supporting the needs of the company, but no one knows what to do. So, kind of they're saying that they don't know what to do. Yeah. So I tend to agree with them. So I don't think that they know what to do. And I don't think that, I think that there is awareness that something else needs to be done. There are, I won't put names, but they are like a very old-fashioned gas and oil organization that experience like experimenting right now, agile on the business level, not IT. If you're smiling, probably you know what I'm talking about. On a scale of 20,000 people. So there is definitely an understanding of leaders that there should be a different way. I'm not sure that they know where to look. I'm not sure that, I'm sure that they want, so all of them are very smart people and all of them are looking to grow their businesses. But knowledge is the power, yeah? Yes. And if you don't aware of what exists, then you're not taking advantage of that. You can't. You won't have it. Okay. I can give you an example of someone that is doing it. So if you look at Zappos, so Zappos is running based on concept of complex output system for almost 10 years. When they started, everyone said, "What's that?" But look at the performance and look how they dealt with COVID, and you find out that there are different ways now it's an experiment from their point of view, but it's a very successful experiment that even after it was bought by Amazon, they still give them the opportunity to run the experiment because it's very successful. Yeah. So there are organizations, I wouldn't say anyone, there are organizations that are open, but most of leadership is a different generation, yeah, and it's a generation that came from business school with a different perspective on life, different perspective on organization. What they learn, what they believe is more fit to complicated environment 100 years ago and less for now. And I thought that it's not coming from bad perspective. It's just, I think, missing knowledge. Yes. Or are not open to the idea that there's a different way how to deal with reality. And you don't have to adopt everything that moves around you, but you can definitely try at least. So take one team, take one approach, try it, see how it works. If you see any changes, adopt it. You don't see any changes.
Yes, absolutely.
But even that idea is kind of so. Every discussion that you're going to have with executive ends up with efficiency. Agree? Yeah.
Yes. No, you are. I hear you because this situation is so complex, and if we look at the human society or even the COVID-19 pandemic, these are both complex adaptive systems. Everywhere, all the systems at all levels have become very complex, and they are all have very adaptive. So the reason they are adaptive is that because these are the systems that we are talking about at all levels. They are dynamic networks, and they consist of all independent and interconnected. Interconnectedness. It's we cannot focus only in silo about our system. So all the pieces that are made into a system, they all have to adapt to the ever-changing environment simultaneously. So even if one component of that system changes or adapts, if the rest of them are not adapting or not changing, then it does not make any sense in this complex interconnected digital world. So here adaptation is the key, and the challenge is that to know if all the businesses are willing to adapt to these COVID-19 challenges and changes simultaneously. Do you see that they are willing to they are acknowledging the need. Anyone, let's say, if you talk about one industry, energy industry, or retail industry, they have been prepared, because e-commerce, Amazon and sites like that, they have been preparing. So most of these environment have digital twin there, and people can buy online, people can buy from stores. So they were kind of prepared. But most industries, other than of course technologies, they were not prepared. They never saw the need for preparation. And for industries like airlines and all that, there is no way they can prepare. If people are not flying, what are they going to do? Even if they go, there's nothing they can do in that scenarios. If people don't go to restaurants, what are they going to do? They cannot suddenly overnight change the business model that could help them. So there are a lot of different components. If you look at the broader industries, the broad businesses within industries and industries within nation, there are many complex variables. So how do businesses, or how, industries or nations adapt to such sudden shift in how to do things?
So, eventually you won't have any choice to adapt, because if you want to adapt, you're going to end up like Toys R Us or like Hertz. Or I don't know, like now the list is long, it's probably going to be longer, yeah? It's going to be longer because they're not adapting. And, where it's, I don't, if you're taking all the credit on success as a manager or as a leader, you should take all the credit on failure as well. So yes, so if you see more and more companies disappearing from the landscape of the Fortune 500, that's another indication that maybe the system that you are running or using has flaws, okay, or it stopped being the right fit for the environment. So I think that eventually there's nothing they can do about it. They will find themselves adapting one way or another.
But see that you mentioned a very important point about, if success is there, then can manager take all the credit, or if there is a failure, can should he take all the blame for that? And that brings to a very important point about the decision making process, whether it's a centralized decision making or whether it's a decentralized. In these kind of scenarios, should businesses allow only the managers or decision makers should take business decisions about how to change, how to adapt, or should they do the brainstorming and allow everyone to give their input, so that they can come up with the best ideas? What do you see happening across businesses in how they take decisions?
So I think that there is much more openness to that. I would say that there are more and more organizations that understand the need of, let's say, distribute decision making, or even distributing decision making to other elements of, or to lower level in the hierarchy. That's pretty common. No one. So just like this COVID, if you want to deal with it, you have to have a team. You can't have any. There's no Superman that is going to come, or the lonely rider, and shoot someone and the problem goes away. Okay, it's gone. The problem is that it's a huge mental shift in the American culture, because all the movies that we saw, all the things that we learn are based on the fact that there is one sheriff that's going to save the day. And this sheriff should be the manager in people's head. And I think it takes time for people to understand, to do like a mental model shift, and into understanding that when you're dealing with complexity, you out to listen to a team and give the team the ability. Even like, I believe the vote of a team is better than a decision of one guy. Okay, when it's like, if it's a complicated problem or simple problem, no problem. Like I'm backing up. One guy can make decision. But when you started to deal with complexity, as you know, it's not just that you need to distribute it. You need to have diversity. You need to have more and more people that sees the world in different eyes and have different experience, and they can augment the decision with more understanding of how everything is connected. Because if it's
Yes,
one,
yes, I
so,
hear you on that, and that's a very important point because see, I mean, if you look at COVID-19, we are, if you look at our nation, and I think it's pretty much the same story in every country, is that all the decisions are being made, at the federal level, central government, that is dictating, which vaccines get into trial, which policies, who has to go shut down. I mean, states do have a say, but it's still, we see that there is an attempt to, mandate how things are, should be done all across nations. Now, when we have such a complex system, complex challenge like COVID-19, that is my fundamental, concern and question is that should we allow some, one person or a group of people take all the decisions that would impact our very survival and security, not only our individual human health we are talking about, but also for businesses. So, or should we let everyone, do what they want to do, how to survive, this very troubling, challenging times. What would you say about that? Because I think this comes down fundamentally about, who can mandate, should we have an autonomy of decision making for our own survival and security, or should we let, some other people, who have no idea how a business operates or what, complex challenges business are facing right now or will face, be taking the decision for their survival and security?
so I believe that you need to have a group to make decisions. Okay, I think though that if you give everyone autonomy to protect himself, you end up with anarchy. So there should be something in between. Definitely one guy making the decision for everyone. It's good when you're in war and you have to make decisions fast, okay? Or when you're dealing with again, like with something that is like, it's complicated but not complex. But it's definitely, even if you have one guy that, so, like, if you're talking about cooperation, there are laws, okay? So you have executive, and they are accountable, and the market and like the legal element of organization can find them accountable, and they need eventually to, whether we like it or not, they're accountable for the decision. Okay, so now it's their decision. If they are listening to a group of people, no one's going to find them like accountable the way that they make the decision. It's their decision. But eventually, there are some law and regulation that enforce several people to make decisions. I think they need to be open, and part of them are. So even state, like I won't get into politics, but there are countries that listen to advice of expert, which is a team.
Sure.
And
please know this: we are totally apolitical. We do not believe in cognitive bias based on any political ideology. So our focus is entirely on finding solutions to the security risk facing us in the most intelligent way, using the collective intelligence. So please feel free to respond the way you want to. No political ideology.
Not political. I'm just saying that really not political. There are countries that listen to, so the leaders listen to group of experts that they form, and their ability to deal with COVID is much better than countries that do have a group of, but they're not listening to them. Okay, and there are like plenty from this and plenty for that. It's like really not politics, but it shows you that there are two different approaches to making decision as an impact on the bottom line of life of people, on the bottom line of risk, on the bottom line of how you're dealing with crises. Both of them exist. I never did research, or I counted how much from each and every type. But in the last 10 years, I feel that there's definitely, organization-wise, companies, there's definitely more shift to listen or to give people, like, or to create mechanisms that get distributed decision-making, or to enable a group of people to give a suggestion, and usually the leader will follow the suggestion that the group gave him. You might try to impact the suggestion, but it's still like it's a group interaction. It's not now the tricky part that when you have hierarchy and you have a group, still if I can fire you or I can control the way that you're going to be insured or take care of your dear ones when you have a disease, it's not necessarily 100% peer-to-peer interaction, okay? So it's a group, but it depends on the personality of the guy who runs the group. No, does he instill fear or is not, and there are different styles. So not necessarily when you see a team, it's one in corporate world or in politics or in like running a company, a government, it's not necessarily the same, because when you have like authority that goes down the pipe, there's a problem with that. Okay, it's not the same as like you and I don't know, 5 other friends of yours wants to make a decision. Do you want to go? Everything's okay, no COVID. To Disney on Florida or to Disney on California, and eventually you reach a decision, and everyone will follow the same decision because you want to go together. Yeah, it's not the same mechanism, not the same interaction. And again, I know it's all boiled down to how you run an organization, and organizations are really unique experiment in youth. No, it's relatively new. So we were just talking about 100 years. Before that, organization didn't look the same at all. We tend to forget it. It's not always like that. There were like church, and so there was hierarchical organization for many years. But if you compare church to organization, it's not the same. There's a lot of freedom and autonomy to every church by itself. It's not like they're dictating everything to a level that they scrutinize every what the preach going to say in every Sunday. So it's you see where I'm going. Yeah, it's
I hear you. I understand what you're trying to say, and I was just thinking about it because these complex systems are defined by relationships, right, between all its parts, all its components that give rise to the collective behavior, and how the the system will interact and form relationship with the external environment. So internal environment, external environment, behavior, but everything starts with the individual human behavior. So when we look at this COVID-19, at the individual behavior is at the center of everything, irrespective of whether it's how we will be able to prevent or withstand the COVID-19 infections, how many infections will be there, or social distance, physical distancing, not social distancing. We never want social distancing, physical distancing. And at the same time, we also, what the point that you made, that yes, we do not ever want anarchy. We would never, go for any support, any initiative that takes us towards that, because that would be the end of the democracy and the nation that we all love. But when we look at the complex decisions businesses have to make, for instance small businesses, we all have read the cases about many salons who tried to open up during the shutdown because they simply were not able to feed their families. They were not able to make any living shutting down, and for them it was do or die kind of situation, and they had to open up for their very survival. Now, was that an anarchy they were trying to do? Was that a decision that they were trying to create complex challenges for the country, or they were simply trying to survive? So when we look at all these cases that emerged during this COVID-19 shutdown, and when we look at overall relationship between autonomy, survival, security, decision making, mandates, and all that, this becomes very, very complex, because when we look at the reality for businesses to survive, to compete in this very uncertain COVID-19 environment, is there any one way for each of these business to operate, for them to be able to even survive, or let alone, be successful, and make profits. That all is a secondary right now, but even just to survive.
There's no one way, there's no one way. So let me go back to efficiency, okay? The best way that I'm aware of to survive or to adapt in complexity is the idea of evolution, okay? So you are enabling mutation of different ways to achieve the same thing in your organization, and you are eventually end up with one that's the best fit. But the problem with this approach is that it's not efficient. So many organizations do have the tools in front of them to do it, okay? But you said everything is people, and everything is mental model in some people.
Yes.
So if my mental model said that efficiency is the most important thing on earth, I'll end up in chapter 11 because of efficiency. Like Hertz was an efficient company, Toys R Us very efficient company. Does it help them? It didn't. All the from Kodak all the way to, I don't know, the Hertz is the last one. They all were efficient to some degree company. Yeah? I don't know to which degree, but they were. What they definitely missed is their management ability. Let's take IBM as a good example, okay? So IBM 3 times experienced very tough scenarios, and what they've done exactly what I said. They let different parts in IBM to create different mutation. Eventually, one kick off, and they adopted it. Okay, just lately, they have like Watson, and they have the blockchain, and I don't know what else. I think I forgot. But eventually, they like. I hear less now about Watson. Yeah. So you can start to see that eventually one is better fit than others, and that are eventually adopting the one that's better. And this is what brings probably IBM now for the 4th time the ability to keep on surviving and thriving. And if they won't do that, if they will say, "Oh, this is like waste of money. I need to save more money because I'm in trouble," then I'm sure that they won't end the same way. So like you're asking for example, this is like very simple example. You're not even shying away from any current management system. All you're doing is enable a little bit of waste in order to get different, like to find what is the best fit for you. Because if you gamble on one element and you lost. There's no other way. And gambling is good if you can predict, but if everything is crumbling and moving and unstable, you are predicting based on what? You can't predict. And no, this is what evolution is dealing with. Yeah, like a species doesn't know what it's going to deal with tomorrow. They can't predict for that. They don't even have the way to think about it. Yeah? So what nature came with is like, hey, let's do mutation. Let's see who is the best fit, and always we are adapting to the environment around us. And this is exactly what we need to do now. Like that's what business needs to do now. Hard decision, not an easy one, definitely one that is going to help. Better than what we're doing right now, which is nothing.
Yes, I hear you. And I was thinking, for human society, there is all these systems when we see at global level, national level, local level, all these systems, they are all interconnected. At the same time, we also have this free flow of information that has been made available because of the internet. Now, a lot of countries are trying to go, internal and trying to go towards protectivism and, shut down the free flow of information, as we see in China and, Russia and some other countries. But more so, largely we will see that there is a free flow of information, across nations. Now, when we see that we had this free flow of information, if we talk about COVID-19, When we started in 19, I think October, November, we started getting
Well,
information
not
about.
yet before that, yeah.
Yes, yes. We started getting information that this epidemic is emerging, and there is a very high possibility that it will become pandemic. We were all getting the same information on the internet. In spite of that, we saw that how little the systems, especially the healthcare system, how little they did to prepare themselves. When we look at the protective mask and gloves and all those things that were required for protection, the individual families, they all started purchasing online and preparing, make sure that they have masks, they have gloves and all that. But when we see the healthcare system, we see that they were not prepared. And by the time the pandemic hit United States, if we talk about and many other countries also at the same time, these protective equipments were largely not available, and everybody was scrambling. So the thing that I'm trying to figure out is that in spite of having this free flow of information, how did the supply chain break so spectacularly for not only the healthcare system, for many systems?
It
How
was,
did we not see? How
it
did
was,
we not see?
it was designed to break.
It was designed to break.
Designed to break.
Really?
So yeah, so when you have a single point of failure, you design something to fail. So if you for efficiency perspective make sure that all of your goods are going to be done in China, and China
Yes,
is an
I get your point. Yes, I get your point.
then it's designed to fail. Okay, like maybe not fun to hear it, but that's the reality.
Yes,
If
you're
you,
right. You're right. You're
okay,
right.
I worked for a distributor of Toyota, and in 2011, Toyota we had the tsunami, and all the factories in Toyota was blown by the water. And Toyota back in those times wasn't set up to have a car manufacturing all around the world. So guess what happened? People sat here, all the operations working, but no cars arriving. I'm pretty sure that Toyota didn't suffer from this problem right now, okay? Because they learned the lessons. But are others, like we know the answer, yet they are not. If you, so, and again, like, sorry that I'm referring back, maybe I sound like a broken record, but it's so true that it's amazing. If you go and learn complexity, you find out that one of the main attributes for you to success in complexity is to distribute. Centralization is not helping. Okay, yes. In leadership, in the way that you're running your supply chain, in the way that you're manufacturing, it doesn't really matter how.
Yes, no, you're absolutely right on the point, because we all collectively, the world made China the manufacturing hub. We made India as the pharmacy. They develop more, most of our they produce most of our drugs. The United States feeds the world, the agriculture industry. So when we look at how we have focused on developing these hubs for different industries, I mean, just think of the possibility. If something happens in United States, the world will go hungry. If something happens to India, most of our pharmaceutical products will not reach here. The manufacturing, as we just witnessed that, China shuts down, we all are doomed. So yes, you are right that we designed the systems that way. And now is the time to think, very critically, that is centralization the right way to go, or we should, have decentralized, approach. We have to produce everything, in many different places. So if one supply chain breaks, then we can, just quickly move towards another supply chain. Those are, very important points, but all that requires first and foremost, digitization, to be able to see that visuals, of, okay, this supply chain, there is a blockage here, there is going to be a failure here. So how quickly we can move to another, supply chain. All that would require, us to have a digitized version of the supply chain. Do you see the world working towards that, so that we can have that better view in the coming tomorrow of how to prevent such, failures?
Yes, I think that you see very clearly, like everyone is going to that direction. Everyone understands it. But you know, as you said, it's all about people. So if 10 years ago, would someone tell me, oh, everything is connected, I would say, I don't know what he's talking about. Yeah, I can tell you from my own experience. It doesn't resonate with people. Everything is connected. You see your own word. It's very limited, and that's what you. That's how you perceive the world. Okay. Now I totally agree with you. I'm nodding with my head because I do believe and I see that everything is connected. But I don't think that everyone. You might hear people saying that if everything is connected. I don't think that people really realize it. Okay. Because if you really realize it, then you start to look as a business on all of your connections. And you know, like one of the main things that I'm trying to tell people when I'm going on site to help them is that you're getting used to focus on the parts of the system. You need to start to look at the interaction between them, like how they are connected. And because there are so many flaws in the connection as well, they're not perfect. They have their own issues. And if you want to be aware that those connections exist, A, and B, that you want to make sure that they don't have issues, you know, it's like you have a problem with your heart, with your liver, let's say, and the problem is actually a clogged vessel that it doesn't matter what you're going to do with your liver, you're dealing with the symptom. Up until you don't take the clog out or dissolve it or whatever you're going to do, you're not going to resolve the problem. The same apply to businesses. If when you're walking to an organization, you see people. You see them sitting together. Very easy to say, okay, the problem is in the team, the problem is in the group. The problem is in the process, I can see it. The problem is in the policy. But how all of those are interlinked together and, you know, your organization interlinked to other organization, all of those dependencies, oh, that's complex. Yeah, true. But you know, the light in the end of the tunnel that there are tools today and methodologies that helps you to deal with complexity. So there are tools that help you to model complexity. There are tools that help you to simulate complexity, and those tools helps you to not just, you know, you can suddenly get a clarity into complexity, and then you can start to get insights. Yes. And something that 10 years ago wasn't available. So, you know, you can spend time. So in a nutshell, those set of tools called systems thinking, and MIT were the first one to develop them. It's evolving all the time. But if you Google system thinking and you look on the 3 different ways that system thinking enable you to model a business or a system, whatever, you start to get insight. You just Google that, and you have like now you have some hope because you can use those tools. They're really very valuable tools that enable to deal with complexity. And by the way, you know, United Nations, like big organization that manage. So you know, United Nations used those tools in order to deal with hunger. And did manage to reduce hunger in a very significant way all around the world. Yeah, it's not resolved, but it reduced it. So there are ways to deal with complexity. Simply, you need to be aware of them, and you need to spend time to learning them. It's the same as you learn, you're excited about, I don't know, what is the right hype right now, RPA. So the same as you're excited about robotic process automation because you believe it's going to resolve your problem, and you're asking people to spend time and effort to learn it, find what impacting complexity and what can help you to deal with complexity, and ask people to spend time and effort to deal with that. And even if you are not with the mindset to change your the way that you perceive organization, the way that you perceive or see management models, it will give you a significant competitive advantage, because I can promise you that others won't do that. And it gives you like visibility to complexity, which is feasible. That, you know, that the reason I'm so passionate about it, because you know that people already thought about it.
Yes.
You know, like the last wave. So 20 years ago, the world of economics looks to be different. Yeah. The perception was that it's very predictable, that it's always balanced, that the very deterministic view of, and everyone that says no, they ridicule him, like he doesn't know what he's talking about. Okay, and one of the main achievements of Santa Fe Institute when it was set is to prove the world that actually economy is a complex system, and people are not rational. And there's nothing like a rational actor. And I feel that the same thing should be done in the management world. There are enough evidence and experience with the benefit of complexity or using or understanding complexity and using it in other industries or in other discipline, which needs to be bring in, but for some reason, not yet.
Yes, very true, very true. So what would you like to tell our global viewers and listeners, especially the business decision makers, about how to move forward and where they should focus? And also, what would you like to share about your initiatives and books with our global viewers and listeners?
So, explore. There are sciences that deal with complexity. Explore them. Okay, just Google complexity science, complex adaptive system. You'll find it. It's not hiding anywhere. It's hard so most of them won't come in a business language. So it's hard to do the transition, okay? So use any consultant or any university that develop method how to do it. I'm not going to say myself, but MIT definitely can help you. They have a lot of experience in that route, and there are like management consulting companies like ours that provide services. So you can go and find people that will help you if you don't want to learn that. Spend time and effort on systems thinking. Learn it. It's there. It's a tool. It's a great tool. It's a tool that's missing in your tool set, and you can use it almost on a daily basis. It will help you. So why not use something that exists? Just learn it. So that's what I'm telling to decision makers. Okay, there are ways, and there's enough information to make stuff better. You don't need to change your organization one day. I don't ask or expect everyone to drop everything like Zappos in one day and become a non-hierarchical organization. But definitely between doing nothing and doing everything, there is yet a lot of gray area, and you know your organization better than anyone else, understand and look around what others are doing in terms of complexity and try to adjust element that works for you. And every small element will give you a benefit that you are missing now. So there's a lot that can be done. It's not the end of the world. It's the beginning of a new thinking, maybe. So that's in terms of helping people or leaders how to move forward. Initiative. So what I spoke so far, that's my life. Okay, that's my passion. How to help management to become better. I truly believe that there is a way to transform management behind our imagination. It's there. Even what Frederick Taylor did 100 years ago was a huge transformation in management. Those are 100 years ago, everyone looked at him like crazy. Now we need something different. Yeah, so I think that I totally believe that that's something that needs to be done. Totally believe, like my father went to work, he came upset. I went to work, I came upset. My son is going to work, he's coming upset. So like at least 3 generations, we didn't fix anything. It's like nothing go anywhere. And it feels that there is enough capacity and knowledge and experience and talent in the world to make a difference in that particular area as well. We kind of ignore it. We will put a lot of emphasis on the environment. Cool, important. But everyone goes to work, or most of the people are going to work. So improving the work environment is important, and improving management is eventually improving the work environment. So that's like my life is around that. I truly believe that complexity is a way to, like, learning complexity and embedded ideas of complexity within your organization to the level that you can are are very kind of, they are easy changes yeah, there are easy changes that you can introduce to your business and get a lot of outcome out of it with relatively very low risk in investment. And it's there. In terms of books, so if someone of our listeners decided that he wants to, like he's fascinating from ideas like Zappos, okay? And he truly believed that he wants to create or implement a system that is doesn't have hierarchy, it's a flat organization. Those type of organization require changes in each and every element in the way that management and HR are running. And you won't find any place very clear instructions on what you should do in order to do that. It might sound very weird to people in my generation, but I assure you that people from Gen Z probably will. I know that. So that there are more and more like small companies that start to do it with younger and like they understand the idea of that. So if you are in that particular position in your life and you're looking for help, there's a book that we wrote based on my. So I've done something like that for 7 years. And I learned a lot of lessons. And there's a book that I wrote, or we wrote, I didn't do it by myself, that takes all the practical aspect and explain like what are the changes that need to do in management level, in HR level, in order to run an organization like that. But if you're not in that field, it's not going to help you.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much, Natty, for participating in Risk Roundup today. We appreciate your thoughtful insight on adjusting to COVID-19 complexities, and our global viewers and listeners will benefit tremendously from the information you provided today and also from your book. And as a result, this Risk Roundup dialogue has been of service. We thank you for that.
Oh, thank you very much for your kindness and having me speaking.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. You're welcome. So Risk Group is a strategic security risk research platform and community. Our ecosystem is the first and only cross-disciplinary and collective community that is made of top scientists, security professionals, thought leaders, entrepreneurs, philanthropists, policymakers, and academic institutions from across nations collaborating to research, review, rate, and report strategic security risks to protect the future of humanity. Add your voice to risk groups. Get involved to protect the future of humanity. Until next time, I'm Jayashree, host of Risk Roundup, signing off. See you next time. Thank you.